The Grand Concordant Hall was a geometric marvel, layered with bioluminescent coral stone, hollowed pillars that whispered language variants, and air recycled through 6 filters to appease over 43 respiratory systems. Diplomats scuttled, hovered, and flowed through the chamber with the strained elegance of those paid to perform composure. At its center was a table, modular, shifting height depending on the species present. Today, it was shaped like a pentagonal spiral. They thought it was neutral geometry. The woman seated alone at its apex didn't seem to mind. Valerie Trent was precisely average in all the ways that made aliens dismissive. Her hair was tied in a low bun. Her skin tone, her posture, her voice, non-threatening. She wore a gray earth formal that had just enough structure to signal formality, but none of the rigidity of a uniform. Her hands were folded gently on the table. Her eyes were a warm brown. She smiled. The Varnic delegate, an iridescent crustacean with jeweled antennae and pincers sharper than most surgical tools, clicked its mandibles and chittered. "She is waiting?" The translator echoed the words with a slight delay, flattening the contempt. "Yes," replied Ralton of the Cathal, whose many tentacles glistened with ceremonial oil. "Apparently the human envoy insists she is here for a diplomatic matter. No weapons, no escort, no demands." The Jarn representative, tall and furred like a bipedal jackal, narrowed his gold eyes and sniffed the air. "She smells pleasant. That's unsettling." A low hum swept the hall as they made their way to the table, joined by a recording drone and 1 security officer from the administrative arm. Protocols demanded all visitors be scanned, but Valerie had not only declined. She had smiled when asked and said, "I'm afraid I can't allow that. But I assure you, I'm not here to cause harm." Most species took that as submission. The aliens settled around her, their seats adjusting in rhythmic pulses. Valerie looked up with a pleased expression, like a mother greeting a rowdy dinner table. Her voice was honeyed, soft, but measured. "Thank you all for joining me. I know how precious your time is." Politeness was Earth's oldest camouflage. The Varnic delegate clicked twice before speaking. "Please state your grievance." Your message suggested urgency. "Yes." Valerie unfolded a small, paper-thin tablet and placed it face down on the table. 3 days ago, a diplomatic escort ship from the Trinary Coalition intercepted a civilian freighter headed from Alpha Centauri to Earth. Among the passengers were several human families. My children were aboard. A beat. Several beats. A murmur. The Cathal blinked, all 8 eyes, uncertain. "There has been no sanctioned detainment. Are you sure?" Valerie held up 1 finger. A very human gesture. "There has been no sanctioned detainment that your council is aware of." "That's correct." The Varnic hissed through its carapace. "Then why are you not with your Earth delegation? We have diplomatic channels." She leaned slightly forward. "Because your channels are politely inefficient. And the last time my people relied on channels, 172 civilians went missing near Proxima B. There was a great deal of committee talk. Very little return." The Jarn narrowed his eyes. "So you came alone?" "Yes." "Unarmed?" Valerie smiled. "Quite. And you expect us to what?" "Oh, not much. Just help me locate the vessel that took my children. I've already narrowed the potential range of transit routes, cross-referenced signal spikes, and tracked power trail decay from a jump point activated 2 hours after the abduction. But there are clearance codes I lack. You, however, don't." The Cathal's tentacles twitched. That kind of tracking would require illegal triangulation. Would it? Valerie tilted her head. How embarrassing. Silence bloomed, long and uncomfortable. Ralton spoke cautiously. "I'm not sure you fully understand the procedural." Valerie reached into her satchel, calmly, slowly, and placed a small, black cube onto the table. It was matte, featureless, and didn't emit a single signature. The Jarn's ears perked. "This device," Valerie said cheerfully, "has been active since I entered your station. It's disabled every surveillance node within a 30-meter radius. That includes audio, visual, kinetic, and even pheromone sniffers." She smiled. "Now, Shall we begin again? The drone recording their session flickered, then dimmed to black. For the first time, the Varnick didn't move. Valerie's tone remained light, like discussing recipes over lemonade. You see, I didn't come here to plead. I came here because someone here helped authorize that ship's movement. Not officially, of course. But someone wanted human children. You may not know why. You may not care. But I do. The Jarn leaned forward, claws twitching. You threaten the council chamber? No. I'm asking nicely. Her smile softened. I want my children back. That's all. If I retrieve them before you help me, I'll consider that a lack of cooperation, which would be disappointing. I was raised to be polite, but even my patience has limits. Ralton, voice slow and measured, said, You said, retrieve them. Not rescue. That's right. You're implying they're alive. Valerie nodded. For now. The Cathal tried to access his terminal, but it wouldn't respond. Valerie tapped the side of the cube. You'll find your access locked. Temporarily. What are you? The Varnick rasped. Just a mom, she replied, with an interest in logistics and pattern recognition. She retrieved the tablet, turned it face up, and flicked through a list of names. Lieutenant Grackhern, pilot of the intercept vessel, stationed in the Cassari Belt as of 4 o'clock galactic. Last pinged 5 systems away from this station, far too quick for a Class 2 ship unless they had jump assistance. She turned the screen for them to see. It displayed a calculated set of coordinates, timestamps, and route estimations. Every guess accurate down to decimal precision. I believe a hidden gate was used, illicit of course. Possibly in the control of a private research outfit or mercenary syndicate. Whichever it is, they took my children. That was a mistake. The Jarn was no longer amused. You're a hunter. Valerie cocked her head. Oh no. Hunters enjoy the chase. I don't. The Cathal adjusted his tentacles nervously. Your government knows I'm here and has issued no retraction, which means they've decided to let me off the leash. Not officially, of course, but unofficially. She chuckled softly. They'll pretend I don't exist. That's usually safer for all involved. The Varnick shifted back. Why not simply declare war? Valerie's eyes darkened. The smile remained, but it cooled. Because humans don't start wars over insults. They don't start wars over territory. They start wars when something deep gets broken, like trust or children. The Jarn's throat rumbled. How many others like you are there? She looked at him with genuine warmth. That's the wrong question. The right one is, how many of us are watching? The cube beeped once. Valerie picked it up, slid it back into her satchel. The drone reactivated, none the wiser. Terminals lit up again. The chamber returned to normal. Almost. Valerie stood, smoothing the wrinkles from her dress. Thank you for the tea, she said to no one in particular. Delightful blend. Little strong on the anise, though. She turned to leave. Ralton rose instinctively. Wait, how will you? She paused at the door, then turned with the faintest grin. I already know where the ship went. This was just a courtesy call. The Jarn stepped into her path. If you go rogue from here, we're obligated to intervene. Valerie stepped closer. He tensed. Her voice dropped just enough to freeze the air. You can try. Something passed between them, an instinct, primal and buried deep. The Jarn's ears twitched back. He moved aside without realizing it. Valerie nodded graciously. Manners matter. Then she walked out. The door hissed shut. The council sat in stunned silence. Ralton was the first to speak, almost reverently. She didn't blink once. Not once. During the whole session. The Cathal's tendrils moved as if praying. I think we invited death in and offered a tea. The Varnick exhaled slowly. If she fails, we're safe. If she succeeds, the Jarn growled. We were never safe. The pirate ship was painted in cheap cloaking glaze, shiny enough to fool low-tier scanners, but transparent to someone who understood heat signatures and impulse echo. It drifted above a gas giant like a bloated tick, absorbing energy and waiting for something small and soft to chew on. It found something, or rather, something found it. Inside the vessel's lounge, a dozen mercenaries were halfway through a stolen supply of fermented Zint nectar, laughing at their latest haul, a freighter carrying oddly delicate mammals. One particularly vocal Gordak, for arms and no manners, raised his drink and bellowed, "Humans squeal like kettlebirds when you yank 'em right." Laughter rippled through the room. A moment later, the door slid open and a human walked in. She was tall, elegant, and wore a soft blue dress with subtle floral embroidery. Her high heels tapped delicately against the alloy floor. Blonde hair, dark eyes, the kind of poised posture that came from either military discipline or good breeding. Her tone was warm. "Sorry I'm late." The wine didn't uncork itself. The pirates froze, mouths half open. One reached for his blaster. She pointed at him with a playful finger. "Wouldn't." The air shimmered as something silent activated. The lights dimmed for less than a second. The Gordak's blaster never made it out of his holster. He dropped to his knees, gagging. The others followed in waves, eyes wide, throats closing. The nectar had been tainted, of course. Not with poison. That would have been too quick. But with a rare biochemical blocker that paralyzed airways over the course of 12 seconds. Just enough time to panic. Valerie walked past them, calm as a church sermon. She knelt beside the captain, who was twitching with effort, eyes bulging. She smiled softly, tapped a syringe against his cheek, and injected it. He gasped, shuddered, then collapsed against a wall, barely breathing, but alive. "You'll recover in 5 minutes," she said. "Maybe 6 if you have poor circulation. We'll see." The captain rasped, what do you want?" "Not much." She sat across from him and crossed her legs. "A name, a location, and an answer." I don't." "You do." Her voice had lost none of its warmth, but something in it bent the air. The pirate choked on his own spit. Valerie reached into her bag and pulled out a small plush, soft pink, frayed at one ear. "A child's toy. I found this in the last ship you raided." The captain stared. "They were headed to Earth. You intercepted them. I want to know where you delivered the cargo." I don't." "Lie again," she said sweetly, "and I'll feed you your own tongue in 7 pieces. Politely, of course." He swallowed. "The hand of the veil. Research base. Deep belt. We were just haulin'. Didn't ask questions." Valerie tilted her head. "Did you hear them scream?" He blinked. "What?" "My children. Did you hear them scream when you handed them off?" I didn't." "You did." He looked away. Valerie stood. She patted his shoulder gently, a kindergarten teacher, bidding goodbye. "You're lucky," she said. "You get to live with that memory." As she turned to leave, a shadow detached itself from the ceiling, sleek, chitin-armored, and armed with plasma daggers. It dropped behind her, silent and fast. She didn't even turn. Her heel moved. There was a click. The floor panel beneath the assassin triggered a burst of compressed atmosphere. It launched the creature into the ceiling with a wet crunch. Valerie paused. "I told you not to reach for weapons." She stepped delicately over the twitching corpse and exited the lounge. By the time the rest of the pirates recovered, the ship's main drive was fried, the NAV systems wiped, and all docking logs copied and erased. Valerie didn't kill them. She didn't need to. On the edge of the station ring, she stood quietly, checking her notes. Her face was unreadable, her breath even. The plush toy was tucked safely in her coat pocket. The next leg of the route was coded in a pattern only someone fluent in 6 dead Terran languages could crack. Valerie had cracked it in under 6 minutes using an old crossword technique from a 1980s Earth magazine. Human history was a dense web of concealed violence and charming hobbies. She liked both. An encrypted message pinged across the galactic relay network. Meant to be invisible. It wasn't. Valerie intercepted it mid-route. A bounty had been issued. Human rogue, high priority, live capture preferred. Species name, Valerie Trent. Threat level, escalating. Known for psychological manipulation and soft-spoken intimidation. She smiled when she read it. Back at the Grand Concordance Station, panic bloomed like mold in damp silence. The council members were split between denying involvement and bracing for retaliation. The Jarn ambassador had since requested a full report on Earth's military history. Upon discovering the existence of special operations units, he immediately doubled the guards outside his embassy and filed for species-wide reassessment. Meanwhile, Valerie hijacked a transport to the Kasari Belt. The ship she chose was civilian, crowded, full of tourists and diplomatic staffers. The safest place to hide a lion was in a petting zoo. A young Etherian girl sat across from her, bright-eyed and fascinated. "Are you a diplomat?" she asked. Valerie smiled. "Not today. You smell like honey and fire." "What a poetic thing to say." The girl beamed. "I want to be human when I grow up." Valerie's smile turned wistful. "We're not for everyone." By the time they reached the station, Valerie had cross-referenced 3 additional black market jump gate locations and confirmed that her children had passed through one of them. Each gate was operated by a different syndicate, two no longer existed. One had suffered a power surge that liquefied every organism aboard. No one connected the dots. Not yet. She moved through the Kasari Belt with clinical precision. Pirate hideouts, illegal labs, slaver docks, each fell like dominoes, not always with violence. Sometimes she simply left messages. "Where are they?" Each time, the words were burned into metal or spoken by a survivor too afraid to lie. One station received nothing but a gift basket. It contained a toy spaceship, a single human tooth, a bottle of Midwestern barbecue sauce, a handwritten note that read, "You really should have stayed out of this." Rumors spread. They called her the Smile, the woman in quiet, Lady Ash. She never raised her voice. She never made a speech. She just found people. In one particularly ambitious move, a bounty hunter tried to trap her on a desolate moon by rigging the landing pads with explosives. He waited in orbit with long-range scanners and a shuttle full of sedatives. The next morning, his engines were missing. The ship had been gently grounded beside a handwritten sign that said, "Try harder." Meanwhile, Valerie used the last of the data recovered from the pirate lounge to triangulate the probable research base's location. A hidden node built into a shattered moon in an unclaimed quadrant. No regular ships passed through. It didn't appear on official maps. Perfect for something terrible. She requisitioned an old mining vessel, stripped the cargo bay, and reinforced it with radiation shielding. The interior smelled like copper and grit. She didn't mind. As the coordinates locked in, she sat in the pilot seat and pulled a small image from her pocket. 2 children, 1 boy, 1 girl, grinning with all the joy of a summer afternoon. Teeth missing, eyes full of wonder. Her hand held them both close in the frame. Their names weren't spoken. They didn't need to be. Valerie touched the photo's edge. "Almost there, sweethearts." The mining vessel shimmered out of normal space, quiet as breath. Behind her, systems stirred. Scanners mapped pressure variances, power output, air filtration. All normal, all predictable, except for the base at the end of the trail. She'd found the hand of the veil, a place that wasn't supposed to exist, a place where they took what wasn't theirs and cut it apart in the name of progress. Valerie didn't feel anger. Anger was a reaction. She passed that. This was purpose. They'd mistaken her for a diplomat. They'd mistaken her for polite. They hadn't mistaken her for long. In the final moment before her ship dropped into stealth orbit, she sent a message, encrypted, untraceable, and laced with every detail they didn't want made public. She sent it to the Galactic Concord's central servers. It read, "Last chance. You know what I am. You know what I want. Interfere again, and I won't stop at retrieval. I'll burn the archives. I'll turn your maps into memories. And I'll do it all with a smile." She signed it as always. VT. She leaned back. The ship's lights dimmed to red. The approach vector pulsed softly. The Huntress had arrived. She wore heels. Not because they were practical, but because every step echoed like a countdown. The hand of the veil was a monument to arrogance. Hidden in the shattered remnants of an ancient moon, it spiraled inward like a nautilus fossil, layers of biosteel and sensor-blinding plating forming a closed circuit of secrecy. Built without oversight, funded by untraceable credits, and staffed by species who believed consequence was a myth. It was the perfect place to do the unthinkable. Until someone human started thinking about it. Inside, cold lights glowed across sterile walls. The hallways hummed with regulated airflow and the low throb of machinery monitoring sentient test subjects. In one chamber, a child's voice cried out. A scientist made a note. Another adjusted the sedation drip. They believed the children too young to remember. They believed the galaxy too large for any one parent to matter. They were about to learn what human memory looked like. Valerie had arrived 12 hours earlier. She hadn't kicked in a door. She hadn't triggered a single alarm. She had simply appeared inside the walls, moving between blind spots like a shadow bred from discipline and vengeance. The mining vessel she used remained docked outside, passive, its registry spoofed with an outdated Republic seal. It didn't even show as active on their scans. Her infiltration began in the maintenance ducts. Tiny, winding, overlooked. Her fingers moved across the surfaces like she'd studied the architecture for years. In truth, she had studied enough. She didn't need perfection, just one more second than they expected. She reached the sublevel storage bay where offloaded logs were automatically stored before internal parsing. She rerouted them. Now every file copied itself to a beacon wired into the understructure, waiting for a timed burst to relay everything to the public archives. Data was the first weapon. Light was always next. As she moved, she recorded. Not the blueprints. Not the protocols. The screams. She kept her voice steady as she listened. Every cry etched a new line into her posture, another shadow into her eyes. She passed the rooms one by one, never blinking too long. Her children were here. She would know when it was them. A mother always knows. In the command tower, Director Thalen adjusted his cuffs. He was tall for a Zalari, pale gray skin drawn taut over elongated bones, with fingers like folding knives. He frowned at the recent logs, static where there should have been movement. A patrol unit hadn't reported in, but that was common. Union labor was unreliable. He sipped from his nutrient flask and dismissed the alert. Valerie watched him from the ceiling vent. She'd been there for 8 minutes. She had learned early in life the value of waiting. Her father had taught her chess when she was 6. Her mother had taught her how to hold her breath while gutting fish. Both had unknowingly trained a killer. She slipped into the mainframe access room and began injecting false positives into the system. Her digital fingerprints were human, yes, but designed to look unskilled. A rookie trying to sneak a peek. She wanted them to think she was sloppy. That always made them underestimate her. By hour 18, 3 scientists were dead, one electrocuted by a sabotage sterilizer. Another collapsed after inhaling a targeted nerve agent masked as air freshener. The third had fallen down an elevator shaft that had, just the hour before, passed inspection. Accidents, they told themselves. Strange, yes, but explainable. Valerie hadn't been seen once. In Cell 9 Theta, her daughter stirred. Little Emma Trent, age 7, blinked against the lights. Her head hurt. The voices around her spoke languages she didn't know, but her mother had taught her something important. Don't cry when it hurts. Cry when it's over. Beside her, her brother Finn curled tighter, arms around his knees, face blank. He hadn't spoken since they were taken. Emma leaned against him and whispered, "She's coming." Finn didn't move, but the way his jaw unclenched said everything. In the security center, alarms finally triggered, but not for an intruder. For a leak. One of their terminals had just pinged the galactic core with raw, unsanitized files, images, sound logs, detailed notes on experimental subjects, including timestamps and personnel IDs. The message had no source code. It had a signature. VT. Panic spread through the station like a dropped vial. Director Thalen screamed orders. Scrub the systems. Lock down. Evacuate the higher-value specimens. He ordered the release of the in-base response team, 12 genetically enhanced enforcers bred for combat. They didn't find her. She found them. In a corridor outside the observation deck, one enforcer turned a corner and tripped a light-based decoy. He fired. His plasma bolt hit an empty coat and rebounded off a mirror. It ignited the fuel pipe behind him. The blast killed 3 others. Valerie walked calmly through the smoke 2 minutes later. She left them there, still warm, still twitching. Inside the observation deck, the junior technician on duty watched his monitor die. Then it blinked back. A nursery rhyme played softly over the intercom. Ring around the rosy. Then a second message. I'm inside. The technician barely had time to scream. Back in the council chamber of the Galactic Concord, the footage exploded across private channels. It showed children in cages, test logs referencing stress analysis, human DNA sequencing, adaptation to alien toxins. Some species were horrified. Others were curious. The Jarn ambassador broke his desk in 2. The Varnick released a formal statement disavowing the unsanctioned fringe elements. The Cathol went silent. Earth's representatives said nothing. They didn't have to. Valerie didn't work for Earth anymore. She was Earth in its rawest form, a mother-made predator. Inside the base, she reached the final chamber. Her children were there. It was silent. She stepped through the door and saw them, strapped to beds, monitors hooked into their arms, eyes half closed from sedatives. She reached Emma first. The little girl's eyes fluttered. "Mommy," she whispered. Valerie's voice cracked, just for a moment. "Yes, baby. I'm here." She injected the reversal serum. Emma's muscles unlocked. Finn stirred next, sluggish, but aware. His eyes widened. He didn't speak. He launched himself at her and held tight. Valerie held them both. Then she looked up. 2 guards stood frozen in the doorway, plasma rifles ready but unmoving. They had expected a desperate woman. They had found something else entirely. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply tilted her head. "I could kill you both," she said quietly. "But I want you to go back. I want you to tell them what happens when you steal from us." The younger one dropped his weapon. The older one didn't move. Valerie stepped forward, unarmed. He fired. The shot passed through where she had stood. She closed the distance in a blur, twisted his arm, and dropped him to the floor with surgical force. He wouldn't walk again. That was mercy. The other guard fled, trailing wet footprints behind him. She returned to her children, cradled them both, kissed their foreheads. Then she tapped a command on her wrist pad. Every camera in the base turned on. Every file unlocked. Every door released. And from the core, a beacon began to pulse. A broadcast that would reach every planet in 6 sectors. Images, audio, faces, proof. She didn't stay to watch the fallout. She carried Emma in one arm, guided Finn with the other, and made her way back through the base, now filled with screams, klaxons, and scrambling scientists who suddenly understood fear. A door blocked their exit. Valerie placed a small device against the lock. "Sweethearts, cover your ears." The blast was controlled. The door peeled open like a can. Outside, the mining vessel waited. As they boarded, a transmission hit the comms. "Unidentified vessel. You are ordered to." Valerie cut the line. The engines roared to life. The vessel disappeared into pre-programmed warp vectors that spiraled unpredictably across 5 star systems. She'd laid the path weeks ago, just in case. Inside the cockpit, Emma slept curled against her. Finn stared out the window, silent but alert. Valerie whispered, "We're almost safe." He looked up. "Are you going to stop now?" She looked at him. No. The galaxy had seen the footage. The galaxy would debate, dissemble, denounce. But Earth would not forget. Humanity would not forgive. They would wait. And when the time came, the rest of the galaxy would find itself on the wrong end of the oldest instinct in the universe. Protect the young. Outside the ship, stars streaked past. Valerie didn't smile. She just watched the darkness and planned. The hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun. The hand of the veil burned behind them, unseen but not unfelt. Across 6 systems, the signal Valerie had sent ruptured through subspace, leaving no room for denial. Worlds watched in silence. Some pretended surprise. Others quietly erased their own records, hoping to stay one step behind the coming storm. But every species now knew the humans had been provoked, and one of them had answered. On board the stolen vessel, Emma and Finn were finally sleeping without sedation. Valerie sat in the dim cockpit, her fingers curled around a steel coin she'd carried since her first tour on Earth's Arctic front. Cold metal steadied her thoughts. Every breath she took passed through a chest still tight with fury, but her hands were steady, her movements calm. She wasn't done. Her children were safe, but safe wasn't enough. There were others, voices she'd heard down the hallways. Children without names, without rescue. The facility had been only one node in a larger network, and she could smell the shape of it now, like smoke curling beneath a locked door. The ship's proximity alert blinked once. Then again. Something large had dropped from subspace behind them. She didn't bother checking the identity. They had come. She engaged a pre-programmed vector jump and veered the ship toward neutral territory, a long-abandoned industrial ring near the Cratron Rift, where diplomatic ships were forbidden, but ghost stations still clung to orbit. She needed the stage. And the Watchers. The human embassy ship appeared hours later, unarmed, silver-plated, elegant. The Concorde ship followed close behind, its hull flaring with overcompensated importance. 6 different species were aboard that one, scrambling for the illusion of control. She didn't request clearance. She didn't ask permission. She docked her ship to the ghost ring's central spine and waited, arms crossed, watching static flicker across the old communication panels. When the airlocks cycled and the delegation entered, they found her standing alone in a shadowed corridor, a white scarf tied loosely around her neck, and a pistol holstered at her hip. The pistol wasn't for use. It was a message. The Jarn ambassador was first to speak. "You've caused chaos." Valerie didn't move. "No, I uncovered it." The Varnic delegate stood behind him, mandibles twitching. "You violated 37 treaties." "I don't recall signing any of them," she said, tone flat. "I was too busy rescuing my children from your monsters." The Cathal representative tried for diplomacy. "What you've done may have political consequences." "Good." She looked at him. "Maybe now they'll matter." Behind them, Earth's envoy finally stepped forward. Her name was Amani Reyes, tall, dark-eyed, with a spine carved from command. She offered Valerie a quiet nod. "We received your broadcast." Valerie returned the nod. "And you did what needed to be done." That hung in the air like a scent. One of the Concorde guards reached for his sidearm. The click was quiet. Valerie's eyes snapped to him. Just once. He froze. His fingers retracted slowly. Amani's voice was low but clear. "We're here to confirm the full exposure of the Veil network. What you've released is only part of it." Valerie gestured to the far wall, where a terminal blinked silently. "The rest is there. Biometric files. Financial trails. The names of every donor species." The Varnic recoiled. "Lies." Valerie tapped her holopad. A display projected into the air. Images of children in cages, credits exchanged between hidden accounts, signatures in multiple dialects. The room went still. "I left your names in the metadata," she said quietly. "Thought you'd want the credit." The Jarn ambassador snarled. "You're blackmailing us." "No," she replied. "I'm warning you." Amani turned, her face unreadable. "Valerie, this has gone beyond personal." "It was personal. You made it political." The Concorde's envoy took a step forward. "What do you want?" Valerie took her time before answering. "I want acknowledgement. I want reparation. I want the galaxy to know that when you harm our young, you don't just get a scandal. You get a reckoning." "You think you speak for Earth?" the Varnic hissed. "No," she smiled faintly. "I am Earth, or the part of it you should have worried about." The room dimmed as the ghost station's reactor hummed once more, low guttural. It had no weapons. Valerie had made sure of that. She wasn't here for war. She was here for judgment. Amani looked at her again, quieter now. "They'll try to kill you. I know. They'll make you a symbol." "I didn't come here to be a symbol." "Then what?" Valerie looked toward the docking bay where her children slept. "I came to finish something." There was movement from the back. A smaller figure emerged, walking unsteadily through the side corridor, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Emma. Valerie's breath hitched. The girl blinked up at the assembled council, confused but unafraid. Mommy. Valerie knelt instinctively. It's okay. Just stay close. Emma's fingers wrapped around her mother's. The Jarn ambassador lowered his head. No warrior questioned a mother who stood between her child and the world. The Varnik started to protest, but no one listened. His voice was drowned in silence. Finally, Amani stepped forward again. Valerie Trent, your actions fall outside every boundary. But so did the crimes you uncovered. Valerie straightened. So, the envoy nodded. We'll protect you. Quietly. Officially, you no longer exist. I never did. She took Emma's hand and began walking back toward the ship. Where are you going? The Cathal asked. Valerie didn't turn. Home. A long pause stretched behind her, heavy and uncertain. Then the airlock sealed, and she was gone. Inside the ship, she found Finn awake. He was curled in the co-pilot seat, arms around his legs, watching the stars. Hey, she said gently. He looked up. You scared? He shook his head. Good. She set the coordinates for Earth, but routed them through 3 misleading jumps. Just in case. As the ship lifted away from the ghost ring, the children huddled together beneath a blanket. Valerie stood over them, arms crossed, breath slow. Amani's voice played once over the private frequency. This isn't over. Valerie replied softly, I know. They drifted through the stars, wrapped in the kind of quiet that comes only after devastation. In systems far beyond them, species debated whether humans were worth the risk of alliance. Some called them unstable. Some called them predators. Some called them mad. But none denied their resolve. In the weeks to come, factions within the Concord would collapse. Investigations would unfold. Names would be buried. And still, the story would echo. She had come. She had seen. She had taken her children back. No one ever found the rest of the veil. No one ever dared try again. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a single human had triggered a universal reconsideration of species classification. Not through war, through parenthood. The final record of Valerie Trent was found a year later, encrypted inside a children's story broadcast across civilian channels. A bedtime tale about a woman who traveled the stars and brought back what mattered. The story ended with a whisper. If you ever hear the soft tap of footsteps on steel floors and smell something like spring rain and gun oil run. On Earth, Valerie Trent was never mentioned by name again. But every schoolchild learned the phrase her children had whispered in their sleep. She's coming. And the galaxy never forgot what followed.